so the book is trying to say that this demon likes her personality, but another reason Sean didn't like her is because she had a big nose and she had a flat chest, and he didn't like girls that had big noses and flat chests. So, but the demon, however, he doesn't necessarily care. And now it's like I liked her interest in what we learned in class, and that's not true. I really don't think so. And then because it's like the first time he sees her, he just imagines her naked, and then he pretends that he likes different things about her. And this is what he says: I followed her down the hall. Sometimes when she was close enough, this is page 60, I thought I caught the faint scent of perfume. Then when we'd be separated in the crowd, and I'd have to jostle to catch up, once I walked right behind her, close enough that if I'd leaned forward, I could have touched Sean's lips to her hair. It was beautiful. Sean would have to admit that. A color that would be honey and coffee and da-da-da. I wanted to wrap it around my fingers and feel it against my nose and lips and nuzzle it aside to sniff her bare flesh. Like, by this time, Sean's body was showing the effects of my thoughts. Okay, I'm back. So he says, I'm wondering if I'm experiencing love. And then he says, I am experiencing love. And then he tries to touch her hair. And he reaches out a hand to touch it, just one finger. And oh, it was as glossy smooth and as soft as it looked. And then Lane stopped and whirled around. And then once she saw who it was, her lovely face softened. Because Lane was in love with Sean, apparently. You've got beautiful hair, I told her. Thanks. Well, I guess I better get to class. And then he says, no, let's leave the school and go outside to make love on the grass. But I managed just to nod. Whatever you desire, my sweet. And then he talks to her, and she says, you're different today. I watched her lips part and move, and pictured them slightly damp, sliding over various parts of Sean's body. I mean, besides talking to me and all, her words came out fast, uneven, and I wondered if she was nervous. Which, I mean, you never really do talk to me. But aside from that, you seem, different. How so? Well, for one thing, you're smiling, and you hardly smile. So, that's him and Lane, and then he goes over her house. But before that, he starts thinking about her again in this book on page 113. Okay? I was quite looking forward to achieving sexual gratification with Lane, but after giving it some thought, I also felt I could tweak the situation to do double duty. Yes, I would use her as an instrument to fulfill my desires, but I would be her desire-fulfilling instrument as well. I would make Sean Simmons one of the best experiences of her life. Lane didn't know how lucky she was. Unlike many teenage boys, I had the knowledge necessary to create a sublime first sexual experience for a girl. I wouldn't be any trouble. Indeed, it would likely increase my enjoyment as well. So again, he doesn't really care about her. I really don't think he does. He just cares about how he feels. So it had to be after school. There would be no opportunities at school to consummate our love. I would get her alone. Then I'd do everything just the way she'd written it in her diary. We'd follow one of her already imagined scenarios and fall into each other's arms. Then we'd have intercourse, and when we were finished, she'd be left with a lingering memory that she'd recall with joy for the rest of her days. Let's see, what was written in her journal? Hard to remember. There's been several versions. Sean asked her to the dance. There's no dance to go to. John smiled at her with sparkling eyes. I don't know how to make my eyes sparkle. It sounded exciting. I made a mental note to keep watch for sparkling eyes today, in case I could see how it was done. There was the version where Sean told her she was beautiful. That was the one. So, now we're going to go into the next page with Lainey, whatever her name is. So one of his best friends' names is Bailey, but we're talking about Lane. So now we're on page 194. She smiled and shifted under my steady gaze. Have you read those? She looked at books in front of her, and it's like they're pretty good, manga, anime. No, I don't care to spend time on small talk. Lane, may I tell you something? Sure, You're the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. Let's not do that again, she said vaguely. Do what? I know I'm not beautiful, so stop saying it. Does it make you unhappy? I said, unsure. It was puzzling. Those were the exact words she stated specifically stated that she longed to hear. Yes, it makes me unhappy. She just says yes. Then I'll try to stop. It's just that, well, you are beautiful. Sean, cut it out. We both know that beautiful is like Lauren Giotto or Sarah Hunter or Victoria Becklesworth. Or Emily Rice, Sean said. Lane's shoulders seemed to hunch a little. I see what's going on. You're confusing beauty with this society's current idea of perfection of visual form. She stared at me for a moment. Perfection of visual form. Visual form, she echoed. Perfection of visual form, but that's what beauty is, Sean. You're wrong, I said with a finality. I didn't care to discuss the subject at this moment. I wanted to get straight to the matter at hand, to throw myself off the proverbial cliff. And then he scooted over, scooped her up in his arms, and kissed her. Then she began to relax, and she kissed me back. And it was pleasure inside of him, right? So that was a kiss. I see why she wanted to pause and absorb the pleasure of the moment. That was my darling Lane. She appreciated the things around her. So again, she cut the kiss and paused. And then he says, oh, Lane, I'm so glad your grandmother is asleep, napping. You're gonna enjoy this, I promise. Enjoy what? Lane asks. I was glad now that Sean didn't cut his hair, 'cause I could feel her fingers caressing it. Everything. I sighed. Everything of what? Lane asks. Everything I'm gonna do to you. Curiel replies, 'cause not Sean, it's Curiel. Her fingers stopped moving. What are you gonna do to me? I remembered that I'd forgotten to tell her I loved her. No matter. She'd asked a delicious and seductive question, one that I had already considered in some detail. Lots of things, I told her. Like what? Like... And then she was pulling away to sit up. Her eyes were slightly narrowed, the mouth shut more tightly than usual. What are you talking about, Sean? She asked. Her tone did not strike me as tender. It sounded more like a warning to me. Nothing, I said. No, really, what were you about to say? I don't know, I forget. Sean, you know I'm not gonna have sex with you. No, I didn't. That's what the book says. She's like, hey, you know I'm not gonna do this. And he's like, no, I did not know you were not gonna do this. Lane had spent hours concocting scenarios with Sean, as Sean is the deflowering romantic lead. Now she had him ready, willing, and able. What had gone wrong? Your grandmother's asleep. Yes, but I'm not ready. Like, we just kissed for the first time. So what? A lot of people had sex after kissing for the first time. I didn't point that out, though. Quickly, I thought back over what I knew of Lane's desires. Well, her writings had, now that I recalled, been vague when it came to the mechanics of coitus with Sean. Now that I thought about it, there has always been a leap from about the time he touched her breast till they lay drowsily together, post-deflowering, in each other's arms. As though he did remove his short, I didn't recall a scene where his pants actually came off, and there was zero mention of his sexual organs, or hers for that matter. Uh-oh, could I have misjudged? Yes. Most of Lane's expressions of desire had dwelled on the before and after. None of them mentioned the during. Her imagination had never taken her to any of the places I wanted to explore, and certainly not to the wild, dark corners of lust that I was familiar with. Theoretically, anyway, Lane had only ever mentioned the most basic wants, to be held, kissed, and loved. I could get those things, or something very likely like them, from Sean's bony-handed mother. Blast. Out of all bodies, why had I taken this one? Should I have taken the one that was already doing the things I wanted to do? So, that's a part of the book, okay?